Hey guys, Pastor Steve here. Just wanted to share a thought with you from Scripture today. This morning I've been meditating in Isaiah chapter 1. I wanted to read for you a few verses from Isaiah chapter 1, reading from verse 2 through verse 9. Excuse me. It says, "Listen, heavens, and pay attention, earth, for the Lord has spoken. I have raised children and brought them up, but they rebelled against me. The ox knows its owner, and the donkey its master's feeding trough. But Israel does not know, my people do not understand. O sinful nation, people weighed down with iniquity, brood of evildoers, depraved children, they have abandoned the Lord, they have despised the Holy One of Israel, they have turned their backs on him. Why do you want more beatings? Why do you keep on rebelling? The whole head is hurt, and the whole heart is sick. From the sole of the foot even to the head, no spot is uninjured. Wounds, welts, and festering sores, not cleansed, bandaged, or soothed with oil. Your land is desolate, your cities burned with fire. Foreigners devour your fields before your eyes. A desolation demolished by foreigners. Daughter Zion is abandoned like a shelter in a vineyard, like a shack in a cucumber field, like a besieged city. If the Lord of hosts had not left us a few survivors, we would be like Sodom, and we would resemble Gomorrah." Now, this passage of Isaiah here, this opening, Isaiah is giving it to the people of Israel, and he finds out in chapter 6 that God tells him that he's going to give a message that the people aren't going to hear. And he's going to give them God's truth, but they're not going to understand. And here we see that God, in the very beginning, says that this has already been happening. When he says that he raised up children and brought them up. In other words, God instructed them in his ways. He gave them his truth. They grew up knowing about the Lord, but they rebelled against him. And then God makes this interesting comparison about the ox and the donkey, knowing where they get their food, knowing where the good things come to them. But he says Israel does not know. They don't know where all these good things come from, and they don't understand. And so we see here that he goes on to say that their sin has weighed them down. They're depraved. They've abandoned the Lord. They've despised the Holy One of Israel. And so God has allowed them to suffer the consequences of rejecting him in their life. And suffer the consequences that sin naturally brings. Right? When you lie, you people don't trust you. When you hurt somebody else, they want to hurt you back. And so on and so forth. So he says you've observed, you have had all of these horrible things happen, and yet you continue rejecting me. You continue rejecting the one who brings you the hope and the peace, the one who gives you your food and your shelter and your clothing. You keep rejecting me. And then he goes on to say that everything is desolate. In other words, it is not plenteous and full of joy, but it is barren and hopeless, right? And so he says that if the Lord had not left us a few survivors, they would be like Sodom and resemble Gomorrah. And of course, Sodom and Gomorrah were utterly destroyed. And so we see here God is saying that the people of Israel have rejected him to the point of being almost completely destroyed. Now, to better understand this from our context, we could make all sorts of comparisons into our culture today. But the simple reality is, as a people, as a culture, we have completely rejected God's kindness and gifts to us. As a matter of fact, even believers, people who go to church, I should say, many of them walk around as practical atheists, pretending that God doesn't do much for them, doesn't exist in their lives, doesn't have much to offer, or and they don't give him any praise or thanks, except for when they happen to be in a church service or at a worship meeting. And so we see that Israel did not abandon going to temple. They did not abandon going to synagogue, but they did abandon worshiping the Lord. So then that comes down to you and I. Are we going to choose to worship and give thanks to the Lord on a daily basis, throughout the day, recognizing that everything we have comes from Him? Or are we going to reject the one who's given given us all those things, the one who has provided for us in every way that we need? Are we going to ignore that loving, feeding, guiding, carrying hand and pretend like it doesn't exist? Or are we going to recognize it and give thanks for it? I hope this is an encouragement and blessing for you today, and look forward to continuing this study in Isaiah. God bless.